Thank you for such an introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, I'm very often here in Warsaw now, going like out of Ukraine and back to Ukraine. So now I'm going back to Kiev. And what warms my heart is that so many like smart, ambitious people are like here in Poland. Some are in Ukraine, many here Ukrainians in Poland, in Warsaw. But we just discussed like a few minutes ago that it's so cool that like you can live anywhere basically, but you decide, you elect to be here. And yeah, that's great. So let's talk, let's discuss how hope can be helpful to you and useful.
Thanks for being with us. You built Headway to 150 or more million users, like largely bootstrap, like for a long time without any funding, in a quite a difficult environment. So I mean, consumer education out of an emerging underserved market, and hit by the war. It's like insane, quite rare also. So I'd like to hear your story, but also focus on some decisions that so many founders would make wrong, and you made them right. You didn't start Headway with just an idea, oh, let's build a book summary app, right? What were the insights on the user behavior that were so natural to your, inevitable for starting Headway?
I would like to see it in two dimensions. So first is romantic, the second one is pragmatic. So romantic one is that I really believe, I'm very passionate about education and the power of education to change the world, because it was my personal story, self-learning that I've done after, so we also joked already today that how I ended up, and that was through a divorce actually. So that's what I went through, and it was very hard for me. So divorce is like, maybe for some people it's easy, even though we had no kids, but I just wanted to reflect what went wrong. So that's the type of person that I'm in. I just want to understand, like retrospective, what went wrong, what can be done better.
I think as you started reading books.
Yeah, and it took me years actually to unpack everything, and I realized that it's like close to impossible to expect that really like many people can do that, because I had like a nice job, we had no kids, and I know how to I read a lot before, but I focused on work, on just work, and then I realized that many people have different problems, and I would like to help them to be ready, to be prepared for what's coming. And you don't always know what's coming. So life learning, that's something that I truly believe in. Then the pragmatic approach is that, well, we have constrained, in Ukraine we had and we still have constrained access to capital. And in many respects it's even better now than before. So even though it's a war, but in this year, so Headway Inc, we'll talk about it a bit more, because it started with one product, but then we developed into ecosystem, platform of products. We have like 5 and like even more products right now that we are launching. So the pragmatic approach is that we have to understand what we're good at, what can we use, reuse. And I used to work in dating space, and there I learned like lots of things, like A/B testing, being extremely data driven, and also the importance of distribution. So I'm the product guy. I used to be a chief product officer, and I was always like the product, how we make the product better. But very often it is like even sometimes more important to understand how will you get customers, how you will acquire customers. And
so was it more
yeah.
data? Because I know you had been in analytics and product development, as you say, for a couple of years. But at the same time, you're saying about like emotional decision. Like which of those were like crucial part of Headway in the beginning, and which maybe failed you?
Well, it's both. It's really hard to say that it's just one. I believe that yin yang, right? So it's both, with both like rational, emotional, and both like romantic, pragmatic, and data and intuition. Because if you just rely on data, then there are studies when like parts of the brain are damaged in a person. The person have this like Kahneman, Daniel Kahneman says system 1, system 2, right? So and there are different parts of brain that are responsible. So this very rational part, and then like very intuitive part. And if your like intuitive part is damaged, then it's much harder for you to make decisions, because it's analysis paralysis, everyone knows, right? So you just, okay, we need more data. It's never enough. Even the simple decision like what to wear today, right? Okay, one weather forecast, one is not, maybe that's not good. Second one, then the third one, then what was yesterday, because I don't want to be in the same clothes, and then you just pile up. So I really believe that if you just want to make better decisions, then it's not just about like decision making frameworks. It's also about connecting with like your like emotions. And here it's one book I can really recommend. It's Descartes' error. So like the error of Descartes is that the idea is that I think therefore I am. That's his most well-known quote, and that's of course tongue-in-cheek name of the book. And the author by Antonio Damasio, he says that his idea is that it's not just about thinking, not about like rational thing, but also about connecting with emotions, because it's the first like filter that you're just filtering everything into a smaller subset of decisions. So for me, that's why I started. It was both, and that's how I approach things. I try to approach like everything from both sides, any decision.
I love it. Yeah, it's probably generating a lot of questions on the product development side. We can be back to that, but for like nearly 6 years, you bootstrapped a company simply without funding. What did it force you to do right that VC-backed companies get wrong?
So here it's partly true. So I would like to highlight that we had some funding, like very like small amount initial funding from Genesis. Some of you might know, it's a co-founding company.
Which is like a venture builder, you can say, in a way, right?
Yes. So so I was like employee of one of the companies, and it was a very logical thing for me to just, because I relied very heavily on this expertise that was there in this ecosystem of products and companies. So of course, I learned how to do that, but then depending on the geography where you work, depending on the platform, depending on like those things, it's you just when you have access to people where you can ask how you're doing and what you're doing, how you're doing that. that's incredible asset. So I just would like to highlight so that was an important part of our success story.
So you are not entirely on your own.
Yes, yes.
However,
yes.
still with very limited, close to no funding.
Yeah.
What does it cause actually?
So here I would I like this idea of constraints drive innovation. Right? So and that's about I think in many respects about our region, about other endeavor offices that are all around the globe where ecosystem might not be as developed, access to capital might be more constrained, expertise is not so dense as in Silicon Valley, for example. So we had to go to the United States. The idea was that I want to make a big impact. I want to have a big successful business that has a difference. And previous product was more local, like in Europe, and even more like in Eastern Europe, my previous experience. So I just wanted to make it in a different manner. So we decided, okay, we have to be United States from day one. And it would be much harder to make this jump from a successful product in Ukraine, for example. Ukraine is such a small market, so we had to go abroad, and we decided, okay, given that we know how to acquire customers via like digital marketing, that was that's another part of the story, very important part. So sometimes it's called resource-based approach, where you understand what resources you have, like network, connections, then expertise, capital. Of course, it's like very hard to now to like make foundational models.
It sounds like you had very limited resources.
Yes,
right?
yes. So we just okay. We understand. Okay, we need to do something that fits our like resources. And one important resource is knowing how to acquire customers. And we knew that because dating is hyper competitive. So dating is hyper competitive. So that's where I learned. But for some of you, it may be a different resource that you have, unique resource, and then it makes sense to build on that, right? And there we had limited capital, but like knowledge of how to acquire customers. And then also I'm the product person, so the product side was also covered. And given the subscription model, then that's the growth model, right, where you invest in customer acquisition, and then you reinvest when customers subscribe. So that was a growth model for us.
It almost seems to me like you ignored your limitations and doubled down on your strengths. But did that bootstrapping limit you in any way in terms of ambition or speed?
I think it focused us very much on the most important things in the beginning. And of course, some venture-backed stories, they might be home runs, this like really like home run of a company that is valued at 100 billion more, so it's much harder to bootstrap your company towards that. And it may take you much more like time, like years, decades maybe. But in this way, maybe it was a constraint. But then I'm really happy with the outcome. I'm really happy, and we have more than 500 employees. That so we creating lots of jobs for like smart, ambitious people, not just Ukraine. So we have offices in Madrid, we have office here in Warsaw, but yeah, Ukraine. That's where I would like to make a difference, and because there are such many smart people. But then, of course, outcomes for our customers. That's another thing, and they are worldwide, predominantly in the United States at first. Right now, it's Europe. All over the globe, but 50% is the United States still.
You're very positive. You don't seem very dragged down by limitations, but like very focused and positive about what is going right and where you can focus, where you can make a difference. But like finally, after 6 years, you decided to get funded. What has changed fundamentally, or not? Was it a data or emotional decision?
That was strategy. I would say that's strategy. We are profitable. We were profitable. That's our approach to growth. It also it's a constraint in a way, but we were able to through this ecosystem we were able to get some loans to scale for scaling. So we got some, but like debt finance and from the ecosystem that also helps, and but then constrained mostly like efficiency. So our model is very data driven, and we can we just if it's not efficient for us to acquire customers, we just don't acquire them. And so the constraint is mostly this how fast we can launch new products, how fast we can add new channels and expertise in new channels. So not the funding, but then we understand that like strategy-wise, well, if no one knows us, if there is no skin in the game for the ecosystems in the United States, we would like, even though our customers there, we were not well known at all in the United States.
Right. So that like raising Series A, you raise it with Bullhound Capital.
Yep.
So that brought you also some visibility and connections into the US market, right?
Yes, and of course it's still limited visibility because with Bullhound Capital it's more like Europe focused, but they are now also betting on the US more and more, and that's a step-by-step approach, right? So we now we want to have like institutional shareholding at like some specified percentage. So then we at some point we would like at least to be able to be ready for an IPO. And does it make sense to do an IPO? Well, it depends on timing and depends on the markets. It also depends on whether we can get private financing at such a rate that it doesn't make sense for us to be public, because there are costs of being public, of course. And
so you may not be raising anymore, or you may be if it helps you with next steps for the company. And once you became an Endeavor entrepreneur, also you invited Endeavor Catalyst, our global co-investment fund, to co-invest almost along with Bullhound Capital. Great. So let's focus back a bit more on product. Actually, because knowing you have Bullhound Capital, and I know Per Roman from the times I used to work in like an early employee in a Swedish startup and called Cinch, and we would have employee meetings, and the founders would invite some of their friends from the ecosystem. One of those was Per Roman. The other one was Daniel Ek. And I remember Daniel talking about like building product in Spotify by like cohorting people, like experts into tribes. And I know you recently led a conversation with Mati Staniszewski of 11 Labs, and you also tapped on how is 11 Labs really coping with the speed, how they are building product. I'm interested, how are you managing that day-to-day in Headway, like day-to-day, week-to-week? And I've heard you saying this hands-off, eyes-on approach. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so Per Roman, he's the founder of Bullhound Capital. Very happy to have him on our board. And conversation with Mati was like very enlightening. They have this approach of speedboats that I really like. So we are also adopting that kind of approach. Well, they're AI native company, and the idea is that
the idea of a speedboat.
Yeah, so right. What's the idea of this speedboat is basically it's an improvement on two pizza rule by Amazon. Have you heard this two pizza rule? So that the team should be of such a size that you can feed it with two pizzas. So that's like about 8-10 people, and then if it's bigger, it's harder for team to work together. And Speedboat, it's even smaller team. So now with Gen AI, with the AI tools, so the team can be like 3-4 people, 5 people, and it may move even faster. That's the idea of a Speedboat. So just like if you haven't heard, and then just it's a really cool idea.
So really inspired by that, but like if any of the founders would like to grab one thing you do at Headway right, what did you recommend as a best practice?
Yeah. So what like our best practice? So, and that's my maybe bias even. So I value culture a lot. So I used to work in different companies with different cultures. Of course, each company has culture, but then deliberately working on it from day one, basically. Maybe not day one, but of course, if you don't work on it from day one, then still it somehow happens, right? So it emerges, and you might not like what emerged. So culture, as like Peter Drucker said, eats strategy for breakfast, and I really believe that culture is a multiplier. We talked about multiplication today, so it's a multiplier, and I invested from day one a lot in our culture, in mission, vision, values, and then working day to day. So there are so that we live by those values. That's something that I truly believe, and this hands off, eyes on. I borrowed idea from. I read a lot, so it's a team of teams. The book is called Team of Teams, hands off, and I believe that you shouldn't micromanage, right? So you should hire smart and right people on the team and just let them do the job. But then if you don't have your eyes on the people, then misalignment happens, and that's actually one of the mistakes that I've done as well. So I was very eyes on early days, but then as we've grown, I just delegated some of the things to my senior leadership, and even though they are very smart and capable, then gradually decision after decision misalignment start to happen in some things. So
hands off, eyes on.
Yeah, hands off. So that's I just collect. So some people collect cars, stamps, coins. I collect books, and I collect mental models. So that's mental models that is very useful for me.
And then for hands off, eyes on, I still want to touch this two topics as AI, because we think AI is is personalization. It gives us so many opportunities. It's disrupting so many industries, business models. And in education, and like Duolingo story, we talked about it a bit, and that like they communicate or started communicating that AI is gonna disrupt what Duolingo does, and as a result, I mean, there were some maybe less greater experiences of the users. So users started like churning and rating Duolingo down. Then employees were feeling unvalued, and as a result, stock price dropped like at least last year was 80% down. It's like, so it hit Duolingo. Will it hit Headway, or how will you adapt AI into, or how is it adapted at the moment?
Yeah, so
I
heard this saying
Insights.
that I really liked, that AI is like teenage sex. So like everyone talks about it, but no one actually does it or knows how to do it. And well, of course, we have to talk, and it's not to say that no, let's not talk. It's not disruptive. Of course, it's disruptive, especially long term. So we don't know how it will end up, and we have to talk. We have to experiment, and like markets are driven by fear. So now, like fear is, so there is fear of missing out for like Gen AI companies, and then for all others, it's just fear. And but Duolingo was like very overvalued, I would say. So they were trading at I believe very recently at like 15 times revenue. That's crazy. That's crazy. So I understand when it's a B2B SaaS, and it's growing fast. Okay, maybe it's because you have like 120%, 150% net revenue retention rate. So I know, so the Duolingo retention is like revenue retention is 40%. So 40%, and for a B2C product, it's quite okay, it's quite high, especially for education. So education is harder, because when it's entertainment, you just like, okay, you work hard, you just want to relax. When it's education, well, you have to be disciplined about, even if it's fun and easy, still, right? So still you have to invest some of your willpower and resources into sticking to it.
Interesting insights. Yeah. And so let me wrap up and ask you just one last thing about you became an Endeavor entrepreneur, and first Ukrainian in Endeavor, first Endeavor entrepreneur in Ukraine. Why, and what's your experience been so far?
Yeah, so
it's a bit related. Sorry, yeah. It's a bit related to the timing, because it's the timing when Headway was growing heavily. So you were obviously so much focused on the business. At the same time, there's been already war in Ukraine, and you've had a big part of your team in Kiev, and you are based in Kiev, right? So
yeah. So first of all, I would like to thank Endeavor for making this leap of faith in a way. So amidst the war, to open this office, I know that it paid off, let's say, in a way, because I think it was one of the most successful offices last year in terms of the new companies. Of course, we had some like pipeline that was not the case for like offices that were already established before, but still and many of these companies, they are in outliers, so they're like very quite big and very growing very fast. So it was like an honor as well to have this opportunity to join Endeavor. But why I had no doubts about that, I first learned about Endeavor 1 month after I started Headway. That was in 2019. Reid Hoffman interviewed Linda on his podcast Master of Scale, and I was like raving about it with my friends. So we have to have Endeavor in Ukraine. I was just like I even have these messages. I found them, so it's like messages from 2019. And then when I heard that Endeavor, of course I played some part in it as well, because I've met with Alan in 2023 in Silicon Valley. Alan Taylor, his leading Endeavor Catalyst, and then so I was kind of involved, but not in very hands-on capacity.
So what's your experience in like in the last year since you became?
The experience that is that kind of ecosystem that I had via Genesis, via this venture builder. It's well, maybe not exactly the same, but very close. So it's like-minded people who been there, done that, who you can tap into their expertise, who are like readily sharing. And so I'm very happy with the decision. I'm very happy to give back. That's the like Endeavor motto, one of the mottos, right? That we are giving back, because I believe that fostering local ecosystems is the right way to develop our world, like in general, when not just like the United States, Silicon Valley, but also local ecosystems. So Silicon Valley in Israel, here in Poland, very vibrant ecosystem, and it's great to be like in a way be like part of it as well. Like we are that kind of meeting, and also just talking and connecting with founders. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. So you build a EdTech, consumer tech company from 0 to over 150 million users, largely bootstrapped, balancing intuition, emotions, and data approach. Not afraid of AI, and having quite a strong mission to bring a company further global, and to support entrepreneurs in Ukraine and in emerging markets all around the world. Thanks for being with us, and thank you. I got some signals that there are questions from the room. Feel free to ask. We can definitely take a few, before we, hit a glass of wine. Please.
Yeah, so that's a very important part of the story, that these constraints that I've talked about, we were like I was not ready, and there were no funding for blue ocean, something incredibly new idea that was never tried before. So the approach was to innovate on top of something that existed, and that was the competitor that I saw, Blinkist. They were like first to market, maybe not exactly first to market, but first to do it on mobile, smartphone, where you can do it on the go. And then I saw the opportunity to innovate on top of that, to add. Some of my ideas didn't work out, but some worked out. And then first mover advantage. There is some first mover advantage, but very often you can also see what you can improve. And then Google was not the first first search engine. Browser was much later, so not first search engine. And then some of the decisions, especially now with AI, you can rethink so much with AI like as a core of the like business of the business model, yeah, so that was the approach because of our constraints that like eventually it worked out. Boring but useful. Well, I will cheat a bit. So I because like reading still, like, you know, even though you have summaries, you can use Headway or like other projects, but use Headway. You can talk to like Gen AI, ChatGPT, Claude, but this deeper learning, it's still important. Even though we are like promoting micro learning, but I never said that we are disrupting like with micro learning all learning, even though it would have paid some, like if because, you know, very often markets are narrative driven, so okay, everyone likes the disruption story, but no, like we are not disrupting per se. We just like supplementing and helping people to like start on their learning journeys in many respects. So this learning with books, it takes time, but maybe for many people it's boring, but I find it very, very, very useful. I still do that. I read in the last 6 years more than 50 books per year on average. Each morning, that's my routine. I start morning, so like I go out to my favorite cafe and I just read for at least 1 hour, and that's how I do it. Yeah.
Thanks. You know, a fun fact about Blinkist is it was I mentioned we had a guest, you know, Melvin Lubega, for a fireside chat in Poznan, Poland, 2024, and evening before the fireside chat at a large event, he actually announced that Go1, you know, acquired Blinkist, so it's like, you know, the full cycle. Yeah.
Well, it very much depends on what exactly are we experimenting on. We have so marketing is a very big part of our business, and we experiment a lot with creatives, with different approaches on how to position our product, and there is like over time we understand what is a good success rate there. The same goes for product tests. So we target some specific like success rate of tests, and it's more like shows us whether we are on the right path, right? So if it goes up, if it goes down, so, then it informs our decision making. So maybe we're doing something wrong. But if it's a product launch, of course, it also depends on how risky is the product. So entering existing market and doing even sometimes copycat products. So we were inspired by Blinkist, but we've done some things differently. And not just operational efficiency helped us, but also these changes that we've made. But sometimes you're just doing copycat as well, and there, of course, success rate should be much higher. So for Genesis, if we're talking about like product launches, so for Genesis, it has very high success rate. Because like I have this, I think it's even statistically significant data, because like definitely dozens of products were launched, and actually most of them, they succeed. I mean, succeed that they achieved like positive unit economics. They achieved like self-sustainability, so they are like profitable. Maybe they are not some of them might not be very big, but still in a way it's a success. So if we define success like that, if we define success that only $10 billion is success, then of course yes, success rate is different. But what's I would advise is just to talk to find the most relevant people depending on what you're optimizing, and just ask them. So okay, what's your success rate in like creatives, in creating new products, and then just it will help you, because it might be like several orders of magnitude difference depending on what you're working on. First question, we have this similar approach to LTV to CAC for our growth model, because our growth model, we rely on digital marketing, subscriptions, so it's quite easy to do that. And then I would say, management by objectives, it can go wrong too, if you're not managing for unity of the team. So people or teams can be very fight with each other, can be not devote time to help other employees on the team. So, but in general, just putting some KPIs, and then giving the team freedom. Here the framework is there is a very nice framework. It's like clarity, competence, and control. So that's from another book which I can't recommend enough. It's called Turn the Ship Around by Captain David Marquette. So he was the captain of nuclear submarine, and but it's incredibly useful business leadership book. So the team has to have clarity, or the person, then they have to have competence to do the job, and then you can give them control. And the clarity is important, as you said, that you're giving them clarity. Okay, unlimited budget if you're if you're doing good ROI, right? So the ROI is like that, and then unlimited budget. It's quite clear. Then of course you just also having this eyes on whether there is competence, and then I prefer not to intervene. So I prefer for team to be self-managed, self-sustaining. Another thing I would add that it's important to manage the life cycle, because when you start, ROI usually is of course it's negative, and then you just for some people it's quite hard to take these risks. So what I've seen that you have to find something that milestones before achieving positive unit economics. Then of course after that you can put the milestones of scale, management by objectives. So for example, okay, we've got to this scale, okay, how much do you think we can achieve, and then pushing for more, because then inevitably it happens that the team becomes more territorial. So okay, we need to safeguard what we have, and then I believe that the growth is unlimited virtually, so you can achieve this growth. And my role as a founder, as CEO, push for more, but not over push, because then the people can break as well. And maybe some people, if some people can break, that's also okay, because you're have the overall responsibility for the whole team, and even for the people who are not yet in the team, right? Because the team can be much bigger. You can create more opportunities. If some people now dragging you down, then of course the responsibility for the whole. And as for AI, well, that's it can be a talk for like a separate talk, So we.
No, that may be the only question that brought everyone here to kind of dig into, tell us more about AI in Headway. Yeah?
So,
could be.
First of all, I would not focus too much on ROI at first, because no one knows what instrument will work. Also, people are resistant to change, and I don't know how is it for your organizations, but for us, yes, some people embrace AI openly, or some people say that they embrace, some people think that they embrace, not necessarily actually embracing it, but many people are already having too much on their plates. So, and AI is something new. So if you're like also putting this, okay, you have to prove ROI, it should be like effective, efficient, then it's a very easy way out to say, okay, we need to analyze how we can measure success, and then it drags down, right? So important to just experiment. And if I would, even though it's not about like AI specifically, it's more like mindset, culture thing, but culture of experimentation. So experiments should be praised. People who are experimenting, even if they are not succeeding or success is limited, it's not scaling, then highlighting that, showcasing that, talking to other people, other teams, and basically doing this marketing, internal marketing of AI. It was important, still very important. Then depending on what your business is doing, so ours is very like marketing driven. So we started with marketing and tested everything, and still testing. So new instruments, new approaches. So like 11 labs. Then we started with something different, and we ended up with 11 labs, and we really like it. But at the same time, we work with other tools as well, and because every like month there is something new, and yeah, so I would just, it's a general advice, but I would advise not to, because you can optimize management, you can optimize like lots of things, but if something is core for you, like marketing, so we started with that, and I was not even like trying to push like that much other things. But as we adopted it in marketing, I started to push more and more in other, because otherwise it's like unfocused, and like focused approach to implementing, I believe, like very, very important here.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. Once again, Anton,
I'm staying. So if you have any other questions, or you want to dive deeper, I will stay here to. I would like to know you more, to talk to you more. So
thanks so much for being with us and spending your time. Thank you for showing up, and Endeavor brought us together. So I'm very proud to have you as an Endeavor entrepreneur. We say in Endeavor that we listen to you, hear your challenges. We will not tell you what to do, but we'll find 1-2 people most relevant to what your challenge is. I'd like to leave you with that. And I want to thank Natalia for putting up this event for us. And thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Bartek, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. And I believe if you have 3 meaningful conversations, that's fine. That makes your event. So enjoy.